Hi everyone, welcome to my video for the 16th weekend of lockdown in the UK. A little bit less lockdown obviously these days. There's some other things opening up tomorrow, beauty salons, etc. So I'm hearing on the news, but hard to believe, I suppose, that this has been going on now for 16 weeks. We're still not back to normal, and probably won't be back to normal for many months to come, maybe even years, maybe never. But finally the weather has turned out to be quite nice. It's been so windy the past sort of couple of weeks on and off. I mean, I'm using the garden furniture to keep my antennas upright, or at least my top band end-fed wire antenna. That blew over a couple of times. And my collinear, well, there's a bit of a story to tell on that as well, so but I'll come to that. But anyway, yeah, nice that the weather's actually improved a bit. And so, yeah, another weekend and more activity on the radio. I suppose I should start with the IC 7300. I've been so enjoying using this radio, you know, as a DXer for several years, used to using SDRs. To have an SDR radio for my ham radio activities is something else really, and I'm continued to be impressed by the performance of this radio and what it can do really as a function of what it cost. This is actually TalkSport, which I listen to a lot, although Wolves of late have really been upsetting me. They've lost the last two games, but I've been fortunate not to slip down from 6th in the table. But I do listen to this is actually TalkSport on AM. Someone actually, I think it was Jean-Luc, who was interested to know what it sounded like on AM.
Save lives.
So here you go.
In partnership with Arnold Clark, ultra smooth, seamless transmission between high Reading Team Talk and big club exclusives with super celebrity sports guests as standard. Plus, more goal talk to the gallon guarantee. Feel the driving force of the...
I bet most of you haven't seen a reception video or on YouTube of TalkSport being played on a 7300. Good audio though.
Free home delivery.
Really superb actually.
On air, online and on TV at Preview Channel 723.
So this weekend I will be listening to TalkSport, probably not on the 7300, but yeah, it was Jean-Luc, I think, who was interested to know what it sounded like, and I'll do a couple of videos actually with it on AM, on shortwave, on the shortwave bands at some point. I think I've already recorded one or two. Just a great radio. I've been using it on the weekly skeds. We have a sked on Friday evenings that starts on top band, which is what drove me to build a top band antenna, which you guys know all about for £5. The bare SWR on that antenna is horrendous. So my MFJ 949E is working very hard to match it to the radio at 50 ohms. But it's certainly nowhere near resonant on top band. So I'm thinking about modifying it. I was talking to a friend of mine, G1ZMA, and possibly putting a loading coil on it and or increasing the length to get the bare SWR a bit nearer to top band. I mean, that's to say, at the end of the day, anyone who understands ham radio a little bit understands that it's always possible to get a good match, but that doesn't mean that the antenna is efficient or that it's radiating particularly, and therefore radiating particularly well. Now, my friends from Harwell ARS can hear me mostly very well on top band, but we're not very far apart. We're just sort of spread out a little bit through Oxfordshire. So whether I do anything about that this weekend or not, I'm not sure, but I'll definitely be making some modifications to my top band antenna to improve its kind of bare match, to basically make it resonant a little bit closer to top band. Yeah, and then we'll see if that improves the performance of it or not. So at the moment it really is like a lash up, which I quite like, because you know, it's basically, it's like a project really. It's not a product, you couldn't sell one, but it's a project that's going to keep you busy for quite a long time, and but that's the nature of HF ham radio antennas, unless you just buy a commercial product. You know, you put your own antenna up, and then you can, you know, I was talking to one of the Harwell guys actually, and he said that whenever he's got some spare time, he just adds more radials to his sort of more ground plane radials to his antenna, because it won't do any harm, it can only do good. So that's what he does, and I'll certainly have a go. It seems to be working as well as the G5RV, even on 80, which is a bit of a surprise, really. But there you go. So yeah, that's and all this really driven by my lovely 7300, which I'm very happy with indeed. Just such good audio on RX and TX reported. My TX audio is reported as being very good as well, much better than my FT991. So that's something. The other thing I'm doing this weekend, and I started today actually, is I'm programming repeaters into my Yaesu FT991. Now, in particular, I've started by programming Golf Bravo 3 Delta India GB3DI, because that's the repeater in Didcot, and that repeater is run by one of the Harwell ARS members, and given that we've had a significant increase in interest in the club and ham radio since lockdown, and so what he's done is and some new members actually have just got their foundation license. So he's GB3DI, which was mounted on a mast about 30 feet high, has now been extended, so it's now 50 feet high, and he's looking for signal reports. Now, as it happens, I've managed to program the station sort of parameters into my Yaesu with a lot of effort, actually. I mean, the manual was completely useless, but it was a copy of printing off a bit of the manual, following a video on YouTube, and then phoning up G1ZMA and M0KEP, two of my fellow Harway club members, and finally we got it sorted. So but I'm not close enough on 70 SEMS with my collinear to open the repeater. And which leads me on to that antenna. My collinear, which has now been up for sort of a few months, has been sort of swaying around in the breeze for weeks on end, and I don't know what condition it's in. The SWR, I think, is still sort of okay, but as Tim pointed out correctly, that doesn't mean that that the antenna's radiating particularly well. So two things are happening. G1ZMA is currently building me another collinear, and which is very nice of him. He's off work and he's going to deliver it this afternoon, so I'm going to put up another collinear here today in better condition than the one that's sort of, I know the one up there is falling apart because two of the radials fell off and I had to put them back on when I last took it down, and we'll see if I can get the GB3DI repeater open using this radio. Should be possible from Ensham to Didcot, it should be, but let's see. And then assuming I can get that going, I'll probably program some more repeaters into the FT991 over the weekend. I've got all of them programmed into my Baofeng, which was a right pain in the backside, but obviously there'll be, with the significantly enhanced performance on the Yaesu, particularly TX power, it's worth doing. And I'd like to send Dave a signal report for the repeater. He's spent a lot of time and expended a lot of effort and energy setting it up and keeping it going, which is credit to him really, and to the club. So I hope to be able to get another antenna up, and maybe I can get it open, and I can give him an opinion, a view on how well it's working. The other thing is that one of the Harwell ARS members has offered to lend me, I think it's a Diamond manufactured collinear, so which was very kind of him. So I'll have two options for, at least temporarily anyway, on 70 SEMS and 2 meters. So it's all good stuff. The Yaesu really is, I did think about stunning it, but my setup with it on FT8, I don't really want to mess about with that, as it's working very well, and so I can use the Yaesu for that and for repeater work, and have the radio dedicated to that really. So anyway, so this weekend, maybe starting today, get another antenna up and maybe program a few more repeaters into the radio, which is all good. So the other thing that I'm going to have to do, well, I was reminded. So if you look at this beauty, this, I was going to say vintage. It is sort of vintage, but it's also not. So this is the Sony ICF EX5 Mark II. This radio, they started manufacturing it in 1985, and it replaced a radio that was discontinued, the ICF S5W, a radio that I know nothing about, but apparently it was highly sensitive. That radio was discontinued in 1981. This radio has been sold by Sony since 1985 and remained largely unchanged for 32 years. I don't know if it's still being manufactured today. The guy that lent it me, who I won't name, but he can make himself known on the YouTube channel should he wish to. He loaned it to me a long time ago. It's probably getting on for a year, and I've literally used it once or twice. And he quite correctly sort of pulled me up on it and sort of said, well, I'm not bothered about you making reception videos using this. I just want to know what you think of this radio. And it was incredibly kind of him to lend it to me, and I haven't really repeated that by actually putting much effort into it. Now, part of that is because I'm very busy, my job keeps me busy, and obviously there's running the channel, but he's absolutely right to pull me up on it. So this is an analog radio, and it's medium wave FM, and it has 6 crystal controlled shortwave frequencies that you can, so basically with it that you switch through are Nikkei 1 and Nikkei 2. So basically you've got these options to tune to those signals on shortwave on 3, 6 and 9 megahertz, but it's literally just like flicking a switch. So you can't tune. They're basically preset frequencies for the Japanese domestic market. So you've got those, and then you've got FM and medium wave. So 6 options on shortwave, FM is standard, and medium wave, and but FM goes down to 76 megahertz up to 108, and then but the other big difference with this radio is it kind of does resemble the ICF 2001D, but this has synchronous detection, and this radio is revered by medium wave DXs all over. It has kind of legendary status, and I can't think of another analog radio that with synchronous detection, and the sync on this radio really works. And it's always been my intention to use this radio and do some DXing, and just going to show you the side view of it. Yeah, and just basically check out the performance. And I've not got round to doing it yet, which is, and I should have done so. I've always I want to use this radio, but yeah, it's just finding the time really. But after a year, I think it was getting on for a year, as he quite rightly said, I should have done something by now. So I'm going to have to play with this radio this weekend and see what it can do. It'd be really, really interesting to see whether it's possible to use this radio and pick up some transatlantic DX, for example, on medium wave. I don't know whether it might need the help of one of my medium wave inductive kind of loop wound around a cardboard box, which some of you guys will have remembered. But yeah, I'm gonna have a go with it and let this guy know what he thinks. And if I hear anything interesting, I will put some videos up. But the guy that owns it basically just wants my opinion on it, and he's got every right to ask for that, as I've had it for such a long time. A very handsome looking device, even if I would say. And one that we know that performs very well, because as I said, it sort of has legendary status amongst medium wave DXs, and yeah, I'll look forward to using it this weekend. The other thing that I have started doing is I've started studying for the full license. So this is the final bit of study to get my full license, so that I get the full set of privileges. And I bought this book from the RSGB. Now, as a member of the RSGB, you get a discount, and I can't remember what it was. I paid £9.99. I think it might have been, was it 12 quid or 15? It was 12 quid or 15 quid. But anyway, there was a sort of reasonable discount, and so I bought it from the RSGB, and a few days later it arrived. And this is obviously the final part of the training, really. So if those of you that have intermediate licenses, these are the sort of areas of study: license, conditions, operating techniques, safety, some basic circuit work, semiconductors, analog digital signals, transmitters, interference, receivers, SDR, which I think is new for this edition, and that's a new thing for the exam, feeders and antennas propagation, EMC, measurements, etc. Now, this edition So you have to be a bit careful here, because this is the revised version of Advance, the full license manual 3rd edition, to meet the syllabus requirements for 2019 and onwards. So basically, this is the book for examinations taking place after July 2019. So this is the book that I need. And it's pretty straightforward so far. License conditions, it's basically just remembering stuff. But although there is a schedule that you get, so some of the license condition stuff you have to look up. Operating techniques, safety as usual, which obviously we all know is really important. Basic circuits. I've not seen anything really that's taken me beyond my A-level physics that I did. So that all that was all pretty straightforward. It gets a bit more complicated when you get to sort of phasor diagrams and what have you, but there's nothing really complex. Semiconductors, studied before at A-level and uni, and I've got to page 32, and it's taken me sort of 2 or 3 days to get through it. There's quite a lot to remember, actually. There's significantly more to remember, and obviously at a higher level than the intermediate license. And when you flick through it, it can sort of appear a bit daunting at first when you start looking at these circuit diagrams and block diagrams. There you go, there's a double superhet. But as you sort of read through it and you take it in, it's not quite as bad as it looks, is how I feel about it at the moment. But yeah, I can't wait to get a full license. It's the last step really in the training, and then I'll have the full sort of transmit privileges, which would be really excellent. So that is definitely something I'll be doing this weekend and for weeks to come. Now, when I get to the final stages of that study, that might affect the channel, because when I think when I was studying for my intermediate license, I actually took a week off work for the week leading up to the exam, just to make sure that I gave it my best shot, and I'll do the same for this one as well. And probably there won't be very much activity on the on Oxford Shortwave log, but until then, I've got more than enough time to study and keep the channel going. So there you go. So that's it. So this weekend, basically, continue using the IC 7300 on the skeds. I've done a bit on 20 and 40 meters as well on it. Try and get the some more repeaters programmed into my Yaesu and get hopefully a better antenna put up, maybe this afternoon, but certainly over the weekend. And then, yeah, the Sony ICF EX5 Mark II, have a tune around with that, and then basically grafting away to get my work towards my full license. So there you go. So that's it from me. Another week goes by, another week older, but you know, with amateur radio and shortwave radio and DXing, there's always something to do. You know, there's no excuses to be bored. Love the hobby, and all this time at home has really, you know, has presented me with, you know, a lot of opportunities to listen to a lot of interesting stuff and talk to a lot of interesting people. And long may it continue. I think at the moment, probably my sort of pattern of working from home is probably going to continue, I think, until the end of this year, I think, at least. So got plenty of time to you know, to continue, you know, doing radio stuff in the background, and yeah, I won't ever stop DXing, and it's nice to be able to participate in both aspects of the radio hobby, you know, the two main aspects, which are obviously listening and then transmitting, so and the ham radio stuff. So it's all good. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope maybe that might inspire you to repair an antenna, modify an antenna, listen to the radio, try some DX, just experiment really, and have a good time. So that's it from me. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to the next video next week. Thanks again. 7-3.